Late last week, John Ratcliffe, the Director of National Intelligence, informed both the House and the Senate that they were no longer going to be getting in-person briefings about election security. No more in-person briefings, which means the amount of information that both the House and the Senate are going to have about how secure our elections are is going to be severely limited. Because during the in-person briefings, they're allowed to ask questions. They're allowed to dig a little deeper, allowed to, get more information. By cutting those off, if you have a question, you're going to have to submit it. And you better hope that John Ratcliffe has enough time to go through and answer your question and submit you in writing an answer. The odds of that happening, obviously, astronomically tiny, which is exactly why they have decided to cut off election security briefings. They'll still be getting them in writing, according to the Director of National Intelligence's office, just not in person, which again, they're going to leave information out. And the big question, I guess, would be is why in God's name would you cut off these briefings about election security when the election is now right around the corner? Doesn't that seem like the kind of time where people should know more about what's happening? Right? This thing that's like right here now, we should know if it's safe or not. When it's like 2 years away, you could probably submit them in writing and get it, be okay with that. But as it gets closer, you kind of need to talk to us in person. Here's the thing. We know now, right now, we have intelligence that tells us that you have countries like Russia, China, Iran, all trying to interfere in the United States election. Damn near all of this influence comes in the form of bots online. So, yeah, that's piddly stuff. And that's really technically not election security, I should say. It's interference. It's one of those questionable pass interference calls that you'd see in the NFL where you're like, I don't really see that as interference, but the referee called it, whatever. What is actually important, though, is the fact that people here in the U.S. can interfere in the election because our systems are not secure. There's very little evidence to suggest that outside countries actively tried to hack into and gain access to voting systems here in the United States. There is some evidence to suggest that may have happened in a small scale, and perhaps that is what they're planning this year. We don't know, because we don't get those briefings, and now Congress didn't either. But what is important is that we know 11-year-old kids with good computer skills are able to hack into our systems because they're that vulnerable. You don't have to be some kind of super master computer scientist that's been doing this for 30 years to get into the system. You could be a kid that just does this as a hobby and boom, you're in. You're changing votes. You're kicking people off the voting rolls. You're influencing the election from right down the street of a polling place, not from, miles and miles and miles, thousands of miles away in Russia. I know that may come as a shock to hear, but for the love of God, people, it doesn't have to be Russia. It can literally be your neighbor. It could be the person down the street. It could be their kid in middle school. But we're not even taking that threat seriously. And the Trump administration sure isn't, because as we've seen over the years, really, anytime there's kind of election shenanigans, anytime there's vote switching, anytime there's people kicked off the voting rolls, anytime there is foreign interference that is verifiable, it always seems to benefit the Republicans. And that's why the Republicans are always the one unwilling to do something about it.